Hey everyone, John Deere here from John Deere's Embroidery Legacy. At Digitizing Made Easy, we are the largest independent developer of ESA fonts in the world. We have amassed over 600 ESA fonts that directly load into the Wilcom platform. Now these fonts are above and beyond any other font that you've ever tried in the embroidery industry. Not only do they resize well, but you actually are able to control the properties of the fonts based on the fabric type at the click of a button. They automatically join closest point. The list goes on and on. Now we have many different styles of fonts available. We have applique fonts, two-color fonts, fancy fonts, script fonts. We even have ESA elements, which are objects or designs that have been assigned a keystroke. But one of our most popular fonts is actually our 3D foam fonts. And if you've tried the 3D foam, you know that they have a dramatic raise effect because we are literally putting a piece of foam under the needle of the machine to create that raised effect. Now I'm going to share a couple of tips and tricks with you on how to take these 3D fonts that I've digitized and actually do a couple of extra things within the software to ensure that you're going to get good results. We're going to add a tack down stitch specifically if you are running them on finished baseball hats. It's one thing to embroider on a smooth surface, but when you add the element of a finished hat into the equation, you have to put your foam down, you have to tack it down in the center, and then you have to move from right to left, and you have to make sure that that foam is actually tacked down and in place onto that hat before you start stitching. Otherwise, you're going to have the foam bouncing all over the place and potentially falling off. So I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks on how to do that, and also how to use the ESA 3D fonts so that you get even smoother, clean edges when embroidering. Now within my Hatch software, I'm going to choose the lettering within my toolbox, and I have the 3D brush script that's already chosen. It's at 10 millimeters high. Now it does suggest that I do this at 50 mil, so I'm going to type in the letters ESA. It'll come in on screen, and then I'm going to grab that. I'm going to make sure that I make them at least 50 millimeters so that we can see the appropriate height. Now if I look at this, I can escape from that screen so that it's no longer highlighted around the outside, and if I highlight it again and hit the H key, it will allow me to go in and kern all of these letters so that I can position them how I'd like to see them lay out on the baseball hat. Now at this point I'm going to escape, and I'm going to go over to my US just so that I can see the actual height of this design, and the height is 2.5 inches high. Now that's a little bit big for an actual finished hat, so I'm going to make this about 1.8 inches in height, and that's going to be a little more realistic. It's almost 5 inches wide. And now that I have that in place, I'm going to make sure that I change my lettering sequence to center out. Now if I keep it the way it is right now and I go to my player, you're going to see that it'll start at the E, go to the S, and then continue on to the A. And the problem with that is that when you are digitizing or embroidering on a finished hat, you actually have to have it sew from the center out because of the curved surface. So now when I go to my player and I see how it's going to sequence this, it does the S first, then goes to the E, and then goes over to the A. So that would actually be correct. Now I'm going to bring this up to full screen just by hitting the 0 button on my keyboard, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some changes to this design. I want to change the underlay to this design, and if I select this again and go to click the underlay tab, which is under stitching, here is what happens. I click it and it actually will not apply any underlay. The reason why is because this design, this font, was digitized in such a way that it actually has very, very tight density to allow for cutting the foam. And given that, I wasn't able to assign any underlay to it. But that can always be done after the fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that font, and then I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to start to break it apart. When I broke it apart, it actually broke into separate letters. Then I can take the first letter, I can go up to my edit tab at the top, and I can break it apart again. Now when it's broken down into its raw objects, and I can grab all of those objects together and you can see that they're highlighted, then I can go to my stitching tab and I can assign whatever underlay I want. So I'm going to use an edge run underlay. Now let me go back into metric because I need to see metric when I'm actually doing this. I'm going to highlight that again, and I can see that my underlay is set to normal, which is good. If I go and I zoom into this area, you'll see that the underlay is pretty close to the edge with normal. Once I go to medium, it actually moves it inset a little bit more. I want it closer to the edge because I want this underlay to help cut the actual design. And to cut it properly, I'm going to change from 2.2 millimeters to 1 millimeter. Now usually under any other embroidery technique, I would never want to have underlay set at 1 millimeter. That's just too short between the stitches, and you can cause potentially hard stitches and thread breaks. But remember, when we're doing foam, it's not just going a millimeter apart. We're putting a piece of foam which has a 2 millimeter height on it, and it has to stitch through the foam, go over 1 millimeter, and then stitch through 2 millimeters of foam again. So you're actually spanning more thread. So now that I have the first one done, now I can go to the E. And when I go to the E, I'm going to go back to my edit, I'm going to break that one apart, and I will continue to grab all of those points, and then I can assign my underlay again. We're going to do another edge run. We're going to make sure that it's 1 millimeter apart, hit enter, and I know that one's done. Now I just have to go to the A, and I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to break that apart, and then I'll grab all of the objects that make up that letter A, and again I will assign an edge run underlay set at 1 millimeter apart. So now all of my fonts, in my opinion, are set up so that they will actually sew a little better and a little cleaner than just doing them as they were brought in within the ESAs automatically. So there's a couple little things you can do. Now, one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose another color, and this time I'm going to go to my digitizing tools, and I'm going to choose my digitize open shape. And I'm going to choose a run stitch, but I'm going to choose a really long stitch length, like 8 millimeters. And the reason why I'm doing that is I'm going to actually come right into here, and I'm going to put some very long stitches all the way around this S, and then hit enter because I know that's the first object that I did. Then I'm going to come here to the E, and I'll put some very long stitches right here, and this is going to, oh, I just panned over there, so let's pan back. I want to backspace so I'm back on the screen, and I'm just going to continue to put points down and hit enter. And then I'm going to go over to the A, and I'm going to do the same thing. We'll just come right here, and again, very, very long stitches. These are just going to hold that temporarily into place and hit enter. Now if I look at this and I turn the true view on, really it's very few stitches, and it's stitching on top of the item. So I'm going to go to my resequence. I'm going to go to my my last color, which I want to be my first color, and I'm just going to move that up into the first color so that it's underneath of the objects now. Now when I go to my player, I can see that it's going to stitch these long stitches first, and then it's going to actually stitch this one into place. It's going to stitch the other one into place, and that is going to hold down my foam on the actual smooth surface, or the surface of the hat, and it'll make it smooth because a foam is curved, and we want these purple lines, these long running stitches, to make sure that it follows the actual contour of the finished hat. So we're going to sew this out and show you the finished results, but this will help you to set up designs that are perfect for finished caps or any curved surface. The design is finished running on the machine, and this is my favorite part, where we actually get to take the finished embroidery and we get to pull off all of the 3D foam. And it should pull off nice and clean in all of the pieces. You just have to get in there and pull them away. So you can see the results are awesome, and those two little tips that I gave you for tacking down the foam and adding a little bit of underlay to help perforate the foam before it does the finishing stitches will definitely help increase your results, and the quality will just be perfect. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Hi everyone, John Deere here, and thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with all of your friends. Also, to become part of the legacy, be sure to hit the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell to be notified every time we release a new weekly video. So join the legacy now. It's no mystery, award-winning embroidery is our history.